This morning to talk about everything sports. It's the Sideline Report on your hometown radio station, WPKY, The Tiger. All right, and yes, indeed, it's 9:03. We're about on time, Todd.
All right.
For the Sideline Report, and we're glad to have you with us. Tying up right, Todd Griffin. It's the Sideline Report brought to you by the Times Leader, and pretty chilly out there this morning.
It is. Good morning, and may the force be with you.
Oh yeah, may the force be with you, my man. I'm excited. I'm about excited about that as I am our show today.
Do you detect a disturbance?
I sense a disturbance.
There you go.
And I'm hoping to get Chewbacca. I've been trying to reach him via telephone, but I heard he had jumped to light speed somewhere, and it was hard to get a hold of him.
Well, don't we need Han to translate for us?
He's from the netherworld of the Force now.
Yes.
Yeah, because his demise, of his demise in the last one. But you never know about what kind of Ryan Johnson. I guess what's that Ryan? What's his last name? Ryan. What's his last name?
I just saw that this morning.
I know, but anyway, you never know what he's going to cook up for us. But Todd and I are both pretty much Star Wars geeks. But
I do like Star Wars. If you pinned me down, I would probably say I'm more of a Star Trek guy than a Star Wars guy.
Okay.
But why can't you enjoy both?
You can. I do. I mean, I'm probably more of a Star Wars guy, but I'm just, man, we wait every 2 years for these movies to come out. And
well, we've had some big arguments over those things before, and I'm like, you can enjoy both. It's apples and oranges. There's what, 9 Star Wars movies? Well, there's like 5 weeks worth of Star Trek stuff out there.
Oh, yeah. And I love the old shows, and I love the new series, and I like the latest movies, too. I mean, J.J. Abrams stuff he's done with that, just fantastic.
It's a little hit and miss, the newer stuff.
Yeah,
I like some of it. I don't like some of it. But
yeah.
There's a new, actually, Star Trek show on CBS All Access right now.
It's very good.
Star Trek Discovery. It's a really good show. It kind of gets away from some of the original Star Trek things. But, since it's the only Star Trek show out there right now, it's definitely
it's nice to have.
It's fun to have anyway.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Star Trek, we've got some Lady Tigers that have been stars and are trekking right along themselves because they've won 3 in a row.
Yeah, they're trekking right along, as you said. 3 straight wins. Big win at Fort Campbell on Saturday. Of course, Fort Campbell's girls are struggling a little bit, but 80-10 was the final score, and that's not a misprint. Do you have misprints on the radio?
I don't. I think that's a paper thing, but you can definitely have misstatements. I'm very good at that, and mispronunciations. But boy, they're playing some good basketball.
The 10 points was a record for a Caldwell County game. That's the fewest points ever by a Caldwell County opponent. So, good win for the Lady Tigers to go down there and take care of business. Again, Fort Campbell is struggling. Kind of a difficult situation when you go play a team like that because nobody wants to run the score up. Most of us have had that done to us at some point along the way, so nobody ever wants to do it to someone else. But sometimes,
what can you do?
Yeah, you can put your kids out there. I think Caldwell played 9 or 10 people in that game. You can only go so far on your bench. I mean, if the 5 you have out there are still continuing to score and run the score up a little bit, what can you do? I mean, it's almost more of an insult to stop playing than it is to just keep playing the game.
Exactly, and knowing Coach Thomas, she's a class act. She's not going to intentionally do that, but it so happens that you just, it just is what it is.
and we'll actually see Fort Campbell here in a couple of weeks. I can't remember. It's a Monday.
Yeah, I know.
Is it the 18th?
Yeah, that's coming up next Monday.
Yeah,
and they're going to play varsity at 6 that night.
Yes.
Yeah. They moved varsity to 6, and that's one reason. Fort Campbell sometimes struggles. I think there's some lack of some players, and just by having JV, I think they're just going to move a varsity game up to 6 o'clock.
Yeah, and play JV afterward.
Yeah,
but you hate to see anybody's program get in that kind of shape where they struggle to score. But Fort Campbell is 0-7, and they've scored 69 points all year. So, that's really tough.
Yeah, well, I don't know I can't do that math in my head.
That's just under 10 a game.
That's what I'm saying. That's under 10 a game, so that's pretty. Boy, I just don't know. It's kind of hard to fathom, really. I think in high school.
Yes, and then this past Monday, a 49-38 win over Livingston Central, which I kind of thought that game going in was a toss-up.
Yeah.
Livingston Central has some nice-looking players. They had a couple of kids, I think, not come back this year, which is apparently something that's going around at this point. But
seems to be.
Most everyone tabbed Livingston as the team to beat for the girls in the 5th District this season. So, that's a pretty good win for the Lady Tigers. They now have a win over Livingston, a win over Crittenden, played Lyon County really tough, so the Lady Tigers would be looking good if they were still in the 5th District this season.
Yeah, and I really like what I'm seeing. They're swarming to the ball. They are playing pretty tenacious defense. They're after it, and they don't mess around when it's time to get it down the court. Jada, is out there on those fast breaks. J.C. Jaggers had a fantastic game. A lot of contributions. Of course, they don't have a lot of upperclassmen, but everybody on the team is contributing. Bella McConnell had a great game as well. Carson Parker gets quality minutes.
Yeah, so the lack of size, I think, kind of forces an up-tempo play because you're trying to get the ball down the floor before the other team gets their big players down the court and set up. The good thing for the Lady Tigers, though, is they have several kids that apparently don't realize they're short because they play a lot taller than they are. So
right.
Hopefully nobody tells them that they're not that tall because they really get in there and battle on the boards, and that's what it's going to take because you just can't make up a size difference, and
no.
there are really no tall players on the Lady Tigers.
No, they're not, and like I said, the speed I think is their factor. Of course, they pretty much the zone defense that Livingston Central started in. The Lady Tigers didn't have any problem with that, but once the Livingston came out in the second half and went man to man, it gave them a little bit of trouble, but they came, they made a little run and came back. But
well, we talked earlier in the season about trying to figure out how to, finish those games off because the Lady Tigers had a lead against Lyon County and kind of let that game get away from them late. And sometimes it's not about, give me the ball, I'm going to go score. It's give me the ball, I'm going to, 1, protect it. Number 2, I'm going to get us in an offense. We're going to get a good shot. Whether we make it or not,
right.
Sometimes it's difficult to control, but we're going to get a good shot. We're going to run our offense and play the game. We're not going to lose our minds and just start, throwing the ball up from wherever. And I think that's a learning process, and you see the Lady Tigers starting to figure that out. They figured it out a little bit down at Crittenden County last week when they got that win, then got the Fort Campbell win, which, it's always good to get an easy one in there someplace, and then got the win over Livingston. So 3-2 for a Lady Tiger team that, again, had some players decide not to play this year, a little shorthanded. They've got a chance to maybe extend that with a game at UHA on Friday.
Right.
That's varsity only at 6 o'clock over at Hopkinsville. And then Saturday at Paducah Tillman, I believe, is varsity only at 11 o'clock.
That's right.
And I think those are both games, if the Lady Tigers play well, they can get. So maybe a chance to build on a little winning streak there.
Yeah, and I like I said, I think Coach Thomas, she came up and talked to Dennis the other night after the game. I think she was definitely pleased with the efforts, and she's seen the season is short. I mean, it's very young, but she's seen a lot of good things from those first couple of games as we progressing in. So that's great.
Well, we talk about some of the things about taking care of the ball and not making those mistakes. And the first thing you want to see as a coach is effort. Mm-hmm. If your team is out there competing, well, you can work on some other things. If you have a team that doesn't compete, then you're really hurting.
Exactly.
But the Lady Tigers do compete. Like I said, they'll get on the glass, get on the boards. They'll fight for those rebounds. Again, they don't have the size some teams have, but they haven't let that stop them for the most part.
No, and I would characterize them as definitely spunky.
Yeah.
And and that's all. You given that effort and you have that kind of spunk about you, you're going to be in some ball games.
Oh yeah, and they're going to have several games this year. They may have a chance to have a winning record. I'm not sure if we would have thought that going into the season.
Exactly.
So, that's always a big thing.
Well, and here we are. We're looking at the calendar. December's almost over, and we're going to be into January, the tournaments, the holiday tournaments, and then on into February's February's when it happens. So.
It's amazing how quickly you get into the season because, for me it was working on the preview sections and taking pictures and getting those things done. And now you look up and the girls are 5 games into the season, the guys are 4 games in.
Right.
So sometimes you look back and think, where did the time go? But here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, and the Tigers on the road at Webster County tonight.
That'll be a big test. The Tigers 2-2, but the 2 losses are to Hopkinsville, which might win the second region, and Mayfield, which might win the first region. I really think the Tigers in that Mayfield game last week, they lost that game 66-50 on Thursday, but a night where the Tigers just could not make any outside shots and had trouble taking care of the basketball.
Right.
I think if you cut your turnovers in half and just get a few shots to go, you don't have to blister the nets, just make a few shots, they're right in that game with a Mayfield team, again, that if they're not the favorite in the first region,
They're pretty close.
They're one of the top 2 or 3
Yeah.
teams down there anyway.
Yeah, I thought of course, that was their first game out. Of course,
And they look pretty good for just coming off the football field.
Exactly. There were, I think, 2 or 3 the brothers. I can't think.
Guthries.
The Guthrie boys, and
Connor and Carson.
Yeah, they were pretty tough. I mean, they looked like they transitioned just fine from football right into basketball.
They have a nice looking team. They have guards who can take care of the ball. They get in their offense. They've got some big kids. They crash the boards. They can make shots.
They can shoot, yeah.
I mean, it's all there for them, but there's some pretty good teams in the first region too.
But you're exactly right. If our guys, hit a few more shots and didn't have the turnovers, they would have been right there.
And go back to the Hopkinsville game. That's a 6-point game at halftime. I think the Tigers of Caldwell County got to within 1 in the third quarter before they just flat ran out of gas.
Yeah.
Hopkinsville had too many people to run at them, but again, Hopkinsville is right there with anybody in the second region. Mayfield's probably as good as anybody in the first region. So if you're sitting here at 2-2 and those are your 2 losses, that's not too bad. But here's the bad news. Webster County is not far behind those teams, if they're behind them at all, because they got a big win over Madisonville on a late 3-pointer on Saturday, 51-50. Webster County always well coached, plays so well over in their gym, and that's where the Tigers have to go tonight.
Yeah, that's right, and it'll be a good test. But I'm sure Coach Kukahiko and his staff have him ready to play, and you just got to get up there and take it out on the court and see what happens.
Well, we talked about that during football about playing a difficult schedule and how it may hurt you sometimes if you have a weak team, and sometimes you can just get overrun by a difficult schedule. But I thought Caldwell's difficult schedule in football actually helped that team this year.
No doubt.
Sure, it got you a couple of losses that nobody wants to lose. Same thing in basketball. Nobody wants to lose those games early, but when you play a Hopkinsville and play a Mayfield and play Webster County and teams like that, you find out where you are. I think the Tigers have some talent.
Yeah.
This is not a, hey, we're going to struggle this year basketball team at Caldwell. This team can be pretty good. You're a lot better off going out and playing these games. And even if you lose those games early, find out where you are, what you need to work on, and where you need to get to, because where these teams are is where Caldwell County's trying to get to.
Exactly. And there is a core there in place. So, we do have some talent. We've got some guys that can play. And when it all comes together, we're going to be tough to beat.
Well, and typically I think Caldwell County will shoot the ball well. That's why the Mayfield game was, such an anomaly, because Caldwell got some open shots, just didn't knock them down.
Yeah.
You throw 2 or 3 more 3-pointers in there, and again, just knock off 4 or 5 turnovers, it's a competitive ball game. And the Tigers made a couple of runs in the second half to try to get back in the game against Mayfield, but when you just can't get the shots to go, it's hard to put together runs to when you're down 10 or 12. You need a 6-point run or an 8-point run to kind of knock that off and knock the margin off and get back in it. And when shots won't fall, it's really tough to string those points together like that.
They really never got Mayfield on their heels.
No,
they
couldn't put any pressure on them.
Exactly, yeah, and that's what I think would have helped the Tigers. A couple more of those shots fall down. If they could have made Mayfield tense up just a little bit, might have had a shot to claw back in.
And again, I think you expect to make those shots, especially in your own gym.
Yeah.
That was the weird thing, that the Tigers shot the ball so well down at Crittenden County last week in a win, and then they played in their own gym and couldn't buy a basket from the outside.
You just have nights.
It's just basketball.
It's just basketball. That's correct. But good luck to those guys tonight and the gals this weekend as they travel.
Yeah, the Tigers are 2-2. Webster County's 4-1, and like I said, really looking good early in the year.
Yeah.
The Tigers will go to Callaway County on Saturday afternoon, and then another home game. Actually, the next home game for Caldwell's boys is Tuesday
night.
against Carlisle County.
Yeah.
And that was a fun trip down there last year. If you've ever been to Carlisle County, or even if you haven't, it's a little off the beaten path. And, for some reason, I'd never been to Carlisle County before we played them in basketball last year. And so actually went to Paducah, did a little Christmas shopping last year, and then went to Carlisle County from there. And thank goodness for the phone, because I would have gotten lost.
Never found it,
I'm pretty sure we were in somebody's driveway at some point. I'm not saying it's hard to find, but
it's definitely out there.
But the good thing is, the baseball team actually played an All-A Classic sectional game there last spring, so I got to go back to Carlisle County.
Where it was.
if you go through Mayfield, it's a lot easier to get to than it is if you go from Paducah. So just for future reference, anybody going to Carlisle County, take the Mayfield trip. I think they're both about the same. There may be a few minutes difference, but
probably right.
It was a lot easier going to Mayfield and then finding Carlisle County than trying to find it from Paducah, because, like I said, you make every little turn there is.
And, I mean,
maybe there's an easier way, but Siri didn't know it.
Yeah. I think Siri does not know exactly where everything, all the turns and twists are from Paducah into Carlisle County.
I was waiting for Siri to say, "Get out and knock on the door and ask for directions."
She might have.
I would have sworn we were lost several times, but you know what? We kept following the directions, and boom, we were there.
She got you there. Well, yeah, that's a good thing they get to come to our place. And,
yes.
And WPKY will have those on the air. The girls' game against Fort Campbell Monday night and the boys' game Tuesday night here at home. We'll have those. So be sure you tune in for those.
Lots of chances to get out and watch the basketball teams. And, of course, we're still eyeing the big West Kentucky Hoops Classic coming up the 28th and the 29th. And, well, I've been putting the rosters in and trying to get the program ready for that thing. And you just don't realize how many big kids there are till you start looking at these rosters. And teams have kids that are 7'2", 7'1", 6'11", 6'10".
I mean, there's going to be some length there.
Oh, yeah, we just don't see that kind of size in the high school ranks. Even the really good teams, Christian County and Hopkinsville and UHA all have really good teams this year, but they don't stack up to these teams in the depth of talent and just the incredible size.
Yeah. It'll be fun. It's going to be a fun couple of days out at the Cab when the West Kentucky Hoops Classic comes to town. That is the 28th and 29th. All those games get underway at 11 o'clock both days, and it'll wrap up whenever we get through. But it's a full day of basketball and good basketball.
Oh, yeah. And Caldwell County has 5 of the 14 games in that. The girls will play 3 times. The guys will play twice. Right. To me, the best stretch of games is that first day, the last 3 games, because you have all the academies matched up with each other in the – trying to remember the times. Is it 5 o'clock and 6:30? And then you have a Caldwell County game. Caldwell's boys will play the late game that night at 8. So that's a pretty good stretch of games. If you just want to come out and see some really good basketball, and you can't make the entire thing, that's a pretty good 3-game stretch.
Yeah, 5, 6:30, and 8. We've got the 5 o'clock game is Westridge Academy out of North Carolina versus the St. Louis Christian. And then Cy-Fair Learning out of Texas versus Aspire, and then Memphis versus Caldwell County Boys.
Again, Charles Bassey, the big, I think, player in this year's event for Aspire Academy. He's about 6'11", really tore it up down at Hoop Fest at Marshall County last week and a half ago, and he's going to be here. He's going to be a player you want to see because you're going to be seeing him playing on TV in the very near future.
Yeah, and probably more than likely, you'll see other players that may break out.
Yeah.
That are on these teams that you'll see them on TV as well. When you've got that kind of size and talent and skill, you'll land somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So it'll be a good week. It'll be a good couple days of basketball.
But it's just weird to see that kind of talent on these high school teams because they have more height than some college teams do.
Exactly. And you don't see very many 7-footers in the NBA. I mean, there's a few.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, they're not. Yeah, guys are 6'11", 6'9" in the NBA. Don't get me wrong, but your 7'2s and your 7'3s, they're out there, but you just don't see them. They're few and far between.
Well, it's scary because when I was younger, if you'd see a guy that was 6'10" or 6'11", he was usually just big. He was tall. He wasn't necessarily athletic.
Right.
If you threw him the ball near the basket, he could stick it in.
Exactly.
But you see these kids today, and they're 6'10". Yeah, they're 6'10", 6'11", and they're moving like a 6'4" guard.
Exactly. Yeah, that's scary. And of course, if you think about it, somebody that's 6'10" and they're standing next to somebody 7'3", that's a 4-inch height difference or better.
I'm just hoping they don't break our backboards. I'm only half joking.
Yeah. That's exactly.
We do not need to have a dunk contest because we might bring everything to a stop.
We got the Joe Dawkins rims out there, the backboards, because it's going to be fun, folks. We encourage you to get your ticket, get your passes, and head on out to the West Kentucky Hoops Classic, and you can get those around. And all this helps our athletics department here in Caldwell County, and we want to pack the cab for those 2 days.
Well, I know I say this all the time, but it's really stunning that we have an event like that here at Caldwell County. You know, we
Yeah.
look at all these other events that other schools have, and for years, at least from my perspective, I've thought, well, why can't we do something like that? And, well, here we have something like that, and it's not just, you know, a few local teams. It's actually teams from Louisville and Houston and North Carolina and St. Louis.
Yeah,
There's some really good teams coming in, and, again, it's right here. It's
sure is.
it's a short trip out to the cab.
I had Torrey last week, and he and his committee and folks and the sponsors, they've worked hard to get these great teams in here, and appreciate their efforts as well.
I think I saw most of last year's games, and, I mean, it was really fun. Just sometimes you don't know who all the kids are, but just to sit there and watch some of these teams get up and down the floor, again, it's really fun time, and get the 2-day pass and show up for all you can.
Shoot, yeah. That's going to be December 28th and 29th. We're just we're what we are 2 weeks out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, has Chewbacca called in yet?
Let me see here.
That's what we've been waiting for.
Let's see if we can interview Chewbacca here. I think we might have him on the phone. Let me see.
That's awesome, because I figure he's probably pretty busy today with all the, you know,
Well,
the
he's
premiere coming out, and a lot of people probably after those people.
Do you have a question for Chewbacca?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot.
Chewbacca, can you tell us a little bit about just your attitude as far as the premiere tonight? Let's see if we can get him on the phone. Let's see. I don't know if we can or not. He seems to.
I told you he was busy.
We've dropped him. Let's see if we can get him here. He sounds kind of excited. I don't know if that's going to play through there. Darn it, Chewbacca, why can't I get your phone to work? Chewbacca's just not wanting to cooperate. We'll have to
I just
call him
wanted to
back
know
in
if
a minute.
Han is going to make another appearance. I think he is. Maybe not tonight. Maybe not in this movie, but
They act
I
like,
think we will see Han again.
they act like that Han might show up, and I hear there could be an appearance by Yoda.
Really?
That's what I understand.
Wow.
That there are rumblings out there that somehow Yoda is going to weave his way into this. But I don't know. Have you read any of the reviews?
No, I purposely try to avoid those before I watch the movie, because I think those can skew the way you see the movie. Sometimes you see a bad review, but you go and the movie's actually pretty good, or vice versa. You see a really good review and you get all fired up, and then the movie just can't quite measure up.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to see any spoilers. I don't want to find out in this movie, that, well, I don't want to say anything because it might happen, but
I
I don't want to ruin anything for anybody. So,
No,
or myself.
yeah, and it's I tell you what, it is. There's Chewbacca.
All right.
I hear him faintly. Okay, Chewbacca. So you're there on the phone. Are you going to give away any kind of spoil alerts about the movie tonight? Okay. Well, what about Todd's opinion that he should not review any kind of reviews, read any of them?
So he agrees with me then.
Yeah, he agreed with you on that. Are you going to be here for the premiere, or you got to go somewhere else? Okay, somewhere else. Okay. Well, we appreciate you taking the time. We know you've been in Lightspeed. You've been, traveling between Alderaan and the Outer Rim, and we just hope that you all have a great premiere. We're looking forward to it. Okay. So there's Chewbacca, folks. He's on the line.
Actually, I'm wondering what kind of lifespan he has, since those movies were a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
So he apparently has a very long lifespan to still be with us.
He does. And I do want to give a plug. I can't remember what it said out at St. Paul Catholic Church. They have if you read their sign out front.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. They talk about a Galilean from far, far away.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
Yeah. I can't remember that. And I think Ken and Teresa Negre do those. So I mean, I got to go out there and take a picture of that because that I got to give them a plug for that one. I mean, and you got to appreciate Star Wars fans.
Oh, absolutely.
So anyway, looking forward to that. That's a big deal for us guys that like stuff like that. It's our era, when all this stuff started. So.
Well, how much money did the last Star Wars movie make? And not Rogue One, but
yeah. You mean as far as The Force Awakens?
Yeah.
I know. I think it was probably the highest-grossing film of all time. Didn't it surpass that?
It seemed like there was more of a buzz for that movie, but it had been what, 20 years or whatever since the prequels, and
Yes. Let's Google that and just see. Force Awakens gross last year. Let's see. It grossed. Let's see. No, its budget. Yeah, box office. It did $2.066 billion.
wow, that's with a B.
That's with
billion.
a B. Yeah, it cost $306 million to make, but the box office gross in U.S. dollars was $2.066 billion.
Oh. But here's the big question, and this is what we should have asked Chewbacca while we had him on the line.
Yeah, he's gone.
There is no such movie as Star Wars 4: A New Hope. The name of that movie is Star Wars. There's no such movie as Star Wars 5. It's The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, that's right.
I refuse to call those movies
no,
Star Trek 4 or Star Wars 4.
No, I agree. No,
Star Wars
I'm
5.
With you on that. Yeah, if
I
you're,
think
no, you
no.
can't do that.
The first movie is called Star Wars.
That's right.
Period.
No, you're exactly right. The second one's The Empire Strikes
Yes.
Back.
Then we have Return of the Jedi.
That's right.
So none of this episode 4, 5, 6, none of that.
No.
I'm not going for that.
No, I'm not either.
I don't even like that they went back in and redid some of the effects.
Oh, I can't stand it.
I want to see the original.
I'm with you.
And we all know Han shot first.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, I don't know why they would. They
Why?
attempted.
Why would you change that?
And the scene where Han comes back and is talking to Jabba the Hutt by the Millennium Falcon, and when they redid that about why? No, I'm not.
No,
I'm with you on that. I want the original.
Yeah, because that's the way we watched it. That's the movie. If you go back and change it, well, then nothing is sacred. It's just you could change anything.
Chewbacca was way out there, and I hope everybody got to hear his comments, but we'll see.
Well, the phone line. Sometimes you have a good one, and
hyperspace is a long way away.
It is. I mean, and there's bound to be a little delay there too.
Yeah, there is definitely
through the satellites and whatever.
Yeah, it's hard to get here. So, hey, we're going to take a break and collect ourselves, and we've got some exciting more things to talk about. Todd and I have put together our top 5 sporting events that we've attended.
That we've been at.
We've actually been there. We've had our hinds in
at which we have been, I think, is the grammatically correct.
Yes, Miss Mix, if you're out there. Of which we have attended.
Yes, I like that.
But anyway, we will be back. We're going to take a short break and maybe some sort of coffee break or water break, and we'll be back. You're listening to the Sideline Report here in your hometown radio station, WPKY The Tigers. Stick around.
Have you been a victim of debit or credit card fraud? Farmers Bank and Trust can help lessen your risk of getting taken advantage of. As our customer, you have exclusive access to a security feature in our app that will allow you to turn your debit card off while you're not using it, then turn it on instantly when you need to use it. Keep your information safe. Log into our free app to use this feature, increasing the security of your information right now. Not a Farmers Bank customer? Come down. Let us set up your account and start protecting you from potential fraud opportunities. This is not a guarantee that your information will not be compromised. This is an increased security measure. Farmers Bank and Trust, member FDIC.
Hello, this is Keisha Fulcher, CEO for Community Medical Clinic, located at 310 Hawthorne Street in Princeton. Community Medical Clinic's goal is to provide access to excellent health care services that are both convenient and affordable. Community Medical Clinic is taking new patients every day, and walk-ins are welcome. The clinic is open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. to serve you and your family members of all ages. Patients are welcome with all insurances or with no insurance. Not able to come into the Princeton location? Then we have 2 other clinics. Our new downtown location in Hopkinsville at 1102 South Virginia Street and Fort Campbell Boulevard in Oak Grove. Community Medical Clinic, providing healthcare services at your convenience at no extra cost.
Hey, Todd, we're right at a half hour at 9:32 back on the Sideline Report. And Todd Griffin along with Ty Englebright, and we've been talking about, we talked about Tiger and Lady Tiger basketball. We've talked to Chewbacca, and we've talked West Kentucky Hoops Classic. Where are we going now, my man?
Well, we've put together our top 5 list of games which we have attended.
Yes.
And I'm really stuck on my grammatical
Oh, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you
thing
have to help
now,
me
so I
out
don't-
because I just...
I'll be thinking about that all day.
We'll do.
How should we have said that?
It's different when I'm speaking to when I'm writing, but just happens.
Yeah, somehow it's easier when you're sitting down and you're typing something. It hits your brain differently than when you're trying to speak, because we all speak, I guess, informally.
It is exactly. Yeah.
And when you're typing, it's more of a formal
No doubt. And when you throw the
way of
West
communicating.
we throw the West Kentucky in there.
A little twang.
A little twang to it. We're ready. Oh, my goodness.
All right, well, I'm going to start. And
Okay, that's great.
again, my list, I'm going to admit, is a little football heavy.
That's okay.
But after thinking about it, I think it's because football typically draws bigger crowds, and so it becomes a bigger event. And so those games then seem to stick out in your brain just a little bit more. But number 5 on my list is the 2012 state football semifinals in Louisville. It was played at, I believe we played at Fairdale.
Or just say,
We played DeSales,
that's
but it was
right.
at Fairdale.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Caldwell County ended up winning that game 43-31. Of course, that got
was
us
at
to
that
the
game.
yeah, that got us to the state championship game, which we came so close to winning and just didn't. But the things I remember about the DeSales game is that a lot of people, well, most people were picking DeSales.
Yes.
Caldwell County came out and almost ran DeSales off the field in the first half.
Yes.
Then DeSales, kind of got their legs under them, came back and really made it interesting, made it a one-score game, and at that point you're within a play of pulling that game out, but the Tigers were able to settle back down and win that game 43-31, getting a late touchdown to seal that and then move on. But the things I remember is just, the trip up. It was so cold.
One of the coldest football games I've ever attended.
I mean, it was just brutal.
And it-
but then you look up in the stands, and half of Princeton is
Yeah,
there.
great
They've made the
crowd.
trip to Louisville.
Yes.
DeSales really did Caldwell County a favor by playing that at Fairdale, because I think they'd played a lot of their home games back then at Louisville Southern, which I think is more in the city, and Fairdale is just like right there when you're first getting into Louisville.
Right.
So it was a much easier trip for Caldwell County to get there. Just a big win. Caldwell County made big play after big play.
Yeah, it was,
At
it was
that
a fun
point,
night.
At that point, we thought we were going to the state championship game and winning it, and again, almost did, but just the entire night and just everybody freezing together, but everybody showing up, and it was an interesting game because Caldwell County actually had the wrong jerseys on that night, if anybody remembers.
I believe that's right.
Caldwell County should have been wearing white because they were on
Yes.
the road, but somehow or other they got their blue jerseys.
Yep.
So thankfully, DeSales was wearing brown jerseys. Caldwell County had the blue, so there was enough contrast there but it really kind of made for an interesting,
It really did. It
an
really
interesting
did.
scene with both teams wearing their home jerseys. And another little crazy, interesting tidbit that doesn't really mean anything, but always sticks in my brain about the 2012 playoffs. Caldwell County wore their blue jerseys all 5 games because they played the first 3 at home.
That's your
Then
home
they
jerseys.
mistakenly wore the blues to the DeSales game. Well, then the next week at state against Newport Central Catholic, Caldwell was the designated home team, so they got to wear the blue jerseys again. So all
That's
5
pretty
playoff
neat.
games
That
that
is
year, Caldwell County wore their blue jerseys.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I did
So if
not
that ever
realize
comes up
that.
on Jeopardy or anything, you've got that information.
You've got that information, folks, if you need it, and that is good information if you're a Caldwell County Tiger fan, because you never know, because that's pretty cool. Do you want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead and do your number 5.
Okay. Well, mine's football too. It's not local football, but I grew up in Florida until 1980, and all we had in Florida sports teams, football-wise, NFL-wise, were the Miami Dolphins. So I was a little kid. I remember, the 72 team. I was very young, but, Mercury Morris, Larry Zonka, Bob Greasy, so everybody followed the Dolphins. I had Dolphin jackets and stuff, but I kept seeing these stickers about 1975 say the Bucks are coming, the Bucks are coming. What is that? So it got kind of excited. I was born in St. Petersburg, Florida, so the Bucks, when they landed in Tampa Bay, that was cool. So in 1976, my grandfather worked at Citrus World, which is a juice plant there in Lake Wales, Florida, and he came home and surprised me one day. I had tickets to the inaugural season to the Buccaneers, got to see the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was and the Bucs, of course, they were horrible. John McKay was their coach, and their son was his son was a wide receiver, Johnny McKay. I don't remember him, and then the quarterback was Gary Huff.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever heard of that name?
I don't remember that one. Were they still playing in the big sombrero?
Yes, they were. Oh, yeah, that's where they were. Yeah, it was the big sombrero. It was not Raymond James Stadium at the time. It was, and I back then they didn't really have corporate names. I think it was just Tampa Stadium is what they called it.
Oh,
yeah. And but that was about 1976, and got to see the game Buffalo, and it's like a 6-3 game. The Buccaneers lost. I mean, they were horrible.
Oh, wow.
But that was their inaugural season in 1976. And then they went from worst to first in 1979 when they got Doug Williams. I don't know if you remember
Yeah,
that.
I remember Doug
They
Williams.
played in the NFC Championship game against the Los Angeles Rams and lost to the Rams in '79. So
I think the
pretty cool.
Rams played the Steelers in the Super Bowl
They sure
that year.
did. They surely did. So and lost.
Yeah. Well, those were my two favorite teams, the Rams and the Steelers, and I actually got to see them play in St. Louis, before the Rams left, and it was a brutal game. I don't even think either team scored a touchdown. It was 9-6 or 9-3 or something like that, and
wow.
The only thing that stands out is the game was actually delayed for 35 minutes because when they brought the Rams onto the field, they have the fire and they run through it, and they actually caught the field on fire.
Oh, my God.
They caught the turf on fire. So I'm like, I finally get to St. Louis to see the Steelers and the Rams, and now I've got to wait another 35 minutes
Domes?
in the Edward Jones Dome.
Yeah.
They actually had to come out and spray the stuff on it and do something to it. It took 30 minutes.
Just
and
get the game
we were
started.
actually checking scores, and, of course, it was weird to be sitting in the dome and seeing Edward Jones Dome, game delayed.
And yeah, you're right there. Yeah, we know why. They're burning the turf up. But that was a cool place to see a game. I went up and saw the Rams play there. I know at least once, and it's kind of a cool atmosphere in there.
It was different, but I think part of the reason is it wasn't really built to be a football stadium.
Right.
I think it was altered late because St. Louis had a chance to get the Rams from Los Angeles.
Okay.
The way they lured them was, hey, we have this dome you can come play in, so they altered the plans of the I can't remember the name of the entire place now, but they have it's a convention center,
Right.
So they actually fixed the dome up to lure the Rams to St. Louis, and strangely enough, the dome being quickly becoming old and no longer up to snuff with the newer stadiums is kind of the reason the Rams left
Bolted,
St. Louis and went back to Los
LA.
Angeles. Yeah.
But that's I know for a fan, it's tough, but in my mind, growing up, it was the Los Angeles Rams,
Right.
So, but
And they started in Cleveland. So.
But it's just like it's the St. Louis Cardinals,
All
the
right.
football team. It's hard. I mean, I don't.
Well, in a perfect world, the Cardinals would never have left St. Louis.
Exactly. I used to love Jimmy Hart and that team.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was cool. That was cool to have the St. Louis Cardinal football team.
Now that Neil Lomax team, I thought they were going to be good that year.
Heck yeah.
You just never know.
No.
But that wasn't number 4. That was just me getting off
I
track
got
a little
you.
bit.
Okay, you're ready for number 4 now.
Kentucky fans will remember my number 4 game as the night Stevie got loose. Stevie Johnson caught a 57-yard touchdown pass from Andre Woodson late in the game, right after it looked like UK had just blown another one, but somehow they didn't. And Kentucky beat Louisville 40-34 at Commonwealth Stadium in Lexington. Again, I was taking pictures on the sideline of that game, and you're not supposed to cheer or anything from,
Oh, right, because you're kind of you're part of the press corps.
But Stevie Johnson caught the pass and ran right in front of me on the sideline, and there's at least one camera angle where if you look and you can see me in the background, you can see me with my fist in the air as he's running by for the touchdown.
And they captured you, man.
Yeah, so the whole time I'm like, man, I hope nobody sees that. But
that's great.
I knew where I was, so I could see it.
Were you even snapping your camera?
No, once he got into the end zone and started celebrating, I started taking pictures, so I had some pictures of the celebration.
Yeah.
But no, that caught me so off guard because Kentucky had led the entire game. Louisville goes down and scores with a minute to go or minute and a half to take the lead, and you're like, well,
you were going to be disappointed.
Typical
Okay,
Kentucky
here it is,
football game. They've led the entire game, and here they're going to get beat 34-33. And then, boom, it actually happened so fast that it caught Kentucky off guard because the Cats should have gone for 2 after that touchdown. Instead, they kicked the extra point to go up 6. Well, now you're doing the math, and you're like, uh-oh.
Touchdown and extra point wins it.
There's still some time left.
Or ties,
and the crazier thing was Brian Brom was the quarterback at Louisville. On the last play of the game, he completes a Hail Mary pass, but Kentucky actually tackles the guy at about the 5-yard line, and that's how the game ended.
Oh, wow. What a game.
So that's number 4.
That's your number 4?
The night Stevie got loose.
The night Stevie got loose. Man, that's awesome.
If you say Stevie got loose to a UK fan,
they know.
They know.
They know. And I don't know, so sorry. This, you've been to many more sporting events than I have. I've been to a bunch, but not anything. So this one's kind of strange. I think it was 1986 or 87. I was around the old Atlanta Fulton County Stadium saw the Reds play, but I always loved the Braves. I grew up in Florida, so I mean, I had the old Channel 17 WTBS. You know,
Oh yeah,
before it was
everybody
the
watched the
Superstation.
Braves. Yeah.
So, but this was about '87. I was just maybe after my first year of college, but we were down there. Maybe not my first time there, but the Braves had traded for Doyle Alexander, who was a Detroit player, and it involved John Smoltz and everything. So we were down before the game, and I was down in the bullpen area, and Doyle Alexander was warming up. And I don't know if he was going to start that day or he was just down there pitching, throwing the ball, tossing the ball around. And I was down there with a bunch of kids. Well, it was kind of cool. You know, he's kind of an older guy. It seemed like he was older anyway, and I think he was. He was toward the end of his career. But down there at the bullpen, a bunch of kids were lined up there, and he looks up there, and he takes the ball that he's pitching, and he tosses it up at us, right? Well, all I remember is just jumping up and shutting my eyes and just gripping my hand. The baseball was in my hand, but I fell back over the back part. I had to jump pretty high.
Yeah.
And I fell back over the chairs. Well, when I did, I looked down. I was on top of all these kids.
Oh, dang.
And one of the kids' dads was just standing there, and I got up. And he just looked at me and shook his head.
Oh.
Like, you idiot. It was just natural reaction, man. I couldn't do it.
You were like Bartman, you know.
I was. I mean, so I got the Doyle Alexander ball.
Yeah.
You know. And Doyle Alexander, I mean, you know, but that was a highlight of that game. I cut myself, I think, but the man, I smashed all the kids. The guy made me feel so bad that I jumped up and got the Doyle Alexander baseball. But anyway.
You'll always have that memory.
Oh yeah. I crushed a few kids and got a baseball from Doyle Alexander. So that was it.
Well, my number 3 is going to pale in comparison to your story because I can't top
the
that.
Doyle ball.
It's actually another UK football game. And I was actually thinking about this last night, and I didn't want to put 2 on there, but I'm like, well, I guess I have 2 UK football games on here because they win big games so rarely that when they actually pull one off, it just sticks. So
this is number 3, right?
This is from 2007. The night Kentucky football beat number 1 ranked LSU at Commonwealth Stadium, 43-37.
And you were there
in 3 overtimes. I was in the end zone.
Wow.
Again, Stevie Johnson ended up making the game-winning touchdown catch. The Wildcats still had to make a stop on defense, and of course, in the 3rd overtime, you have to go for 2.
Right.
The Wildcats failed. So again, as a Kentucky fan, you're sitting there doing the math, and you're like, uh-oh. But the defense came up with a stop. LSU went for it on 4th and 1, 4th and 2, around the 16 or 17, and Kentucky stopped them cold.
Wow.
And at the time, I'm in the end zone taking pictures. I got a pretty good picture of, the bench running onto the field, and I thought, well, I'll run out here and get some really good celebration shots. Well, I hadn't got to the goal line at that end of the field until just this wave of students is coming, and I'm like a pinball at that point, just getting knocked around. So I changed my game plan and decided, you know what, I'm going to step over to the side and take a picture over here.
Right.
Before I get run over.
Yeah, before you get trampled.
But it was so fun because CBS actually had, their big helicopter there. And as soon as that game ends, you can just see fans from all points of the stadium just run onto the field. And that 2007 Kentucky team, after that win, was actually ranked number 8 in the AP poll. So how rare is that to see the UK football team not just ranked, but
in the top 10?
In the top 10.
Yeah.
They played Florida the next week and almost pulled that game off. It was another one of those 40-something to 40-something games. That was Tim Tebow was still there. Kentucky almost came up with an onside kick late in the game, and I mean it was one of those.
That's 07?
Yes.
That it was? Okay. Who was coaching Kentucky? Was that
Rich Brooks?
Rich Brooks. That's what I thought. Man, what a great coach he was.
That was probably the best team Kentucky's had overall in
years.
Forever.
Yeah.
I mean,
and the goalpost came down that night, didn't it?
I think so. I can't remember.
I know they were shaking it.
Eventually they got the goalpost that they could just lower real quickly after the game, but I can't remember if that was before that game or after it.
Right. It seems like, I can't remember. But I know that there were people all over the field. I remember that.
But it was just an absolute madhouse, and fireworks going off, and everybody yelling, and again,
that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing.
If you're a Kentucky football fan, you've endured so many close calls and heartbreaking defeats, and
I can't believe that's not your number 1.
You're almost sitting there. You're almost sitting there every time Kentucky has a lead like that, thinking, "Gee, how are they going to blow this one?"
Right.
But I mean, that night the defense came through, made a big play, and again it was 3 overtimes. And one game that's not on my list, I saw the 7 overtime game against Arkansas, and that was a game Kentucky lost, and it started late to begin with because it was on ESPN2 or something. So, I mean, it's midnight before this game gets over. And I actually remember we were talking about the game going up, and we were talking about how evenly matched the two teams were.
Right.
And I, looking back now, stupidly said, these teams are so close, they'll probably play 12 overtimes tonight.
Isn't that hilarious?
They didn't go 12. They went 7.
That's unreal.
So after the game, everybody's wanting to kill me because
We've
been at the stadium for 5.5 hours. It was midnight by the time, and then you still got to make the 3.5 hour, 4 hour drive back. And everybody's like, don't ever say overtime again.
You nailed it, man. You nailed it. I love it. So that's number 3.
That was number 3.
Oh, my gosh. Well, my number 3 is not quite that. This was a sentimental one. I'm talking U11 football junior pro.
Oh, those are okay.
My son in the senior class, a lot of guys on that team. But it was, I don't know if it was one of the Owensboro championships that they have up there. At that complex, I think it was
like King of the Hill.
Yeah,
or
it was like King of the Hill, or one of the other ones.
Or Kentucky Cup.
It might have been the Kentucky Cup. It was. I think it was Kentucky Cup. It was one, and it was 2011. I think those guys. Most of those. It was just their 6th grade year. But the second coldest I've ever been in a football game. The first coldest was at that DeSales game. I think this was the second coldest. It was pouring down rain.
Oh.
It was cold. And we were playing in the championship. We had beaten some pretty good teams to get there, and I forget we were playing I think it was the Bears, maybe. I think the Evansville Bears or something like that. I think that's who they beat. I can't really remember the other team, but it was for the championship. Rain. It had gotten dark. Jace Ryan Felker had run a sweep around for a touchdown. He got called back on a holding penalty from we were out probably about from the 17, 18-yard line. And we were driving. This was late in the game, time winding down. That touchdown would, I think, put us 2 or 3 up, okay, with very little time left for the other team. Holding penalty brought it back. Coach, why can't I think of his name? It's my man, Chris Enos.
Oh,
there you go. Coach Enos called the same play. Back to Jace. Jace, this is all dramatic, had been sick the whole game. Didn't know if he was going to play much. Same play, scored again. And they won the game.
Wow.
But it was exciting for those kids. Cold, rainy night. It was special. They bonded, and I really think that all those group of guys, these seniors that were not here on this team, that carries over.
Oh, yeah.
And that was an incredible bonding experience for those young men, and it was fun to be there, and so that was exciting for me because my kid was playing on the team as well. So,
success breeds success.
Yeah.
I've always thought, and when you can have the younger kids win and figure out ways to win, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Winning is a knack as much as anything.
Exactly.
Yes, you have to have talent and you have to make plays, but
there's a certain feel and there's
certain teams, get in that pressure situation and thrive, and other teams get in that pressure situation and fold.
Yep.
And sometimes there's not a big talent difference. It's just, that mindset that, hey, we're going to pull this game out, or the UK football fan syndrome, how are we going to lose this one?
Oh, man, don't do that. But anyway, that's my number 3.
Okay, we need some sound effects. We need to work on sound effects next time.
We need
Number 2.
Number 2. Yeah, we can get some sound effects.
Okay, so my number 2 is the Battle of 1312, and Caldwell County baseball fans will remember that well because the 1991 Second Region Baseball Championship game, the final score was Caldwell County 13, Henderson County 12, on the Colonel's home field in Henderson.
Yeah.
Probably as close to a magical moment when that last out was recorded, because the Tigers had never won a regional championship. Right. Henderson County had won.
Dominated.
Always seemed to win. The tournament was on their field. It seemed like it was on their field every year for some reason. It seemed like everything was against Caldwell County. But that year, the Tigers, from top to bottom, I think they were the best team. Henderson was good, no doubt about that. They were a really good team. Both teams were starting to run out of pitching, obviously, with 13-12. But I think the Tigers hit 3 home runs that game.
Wow.
The game went back and forth. Caldwell took the lead. Henderson took the lead Caldwell got it back. Henderson got it back. I mean, it was just 7 innings of just
drama.
I mean, it was like a heavyweight boxing match.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just landing big shot after big shot. Caldwell County won it 13-12 on a ground ball to third to end the game. And when that throw across was made and the Tigers had won the regional championship, I mean, that was
It's a big deal.
That was about as big as it gets,
Yeah.
for Caldwell County baseball.
That's awesome. And, there's nothing better than baseball for drama, I don't think. I think it's the most dramatic
Well, some people
sport.
say it's boring, but
No.
it's not boring. Sometimes games drag, but when you have big baseball games, that downtime kind of builds the drama.
You're hanging on every
it sets the
pitch.
scene, yes, because in a low-scoring game especially,
Especially.
One swing of the bat is the game.
One error, one
Absolutely.
When you walk the leadoff man in the late innings, it usually does not turn out
Right.
very good. Something's good. You figure out a way to manufacture a run, get them to second, or bunt them over, do something. Especially if you got some outs left, it's just not good.
But I'm not sure, short of winning the state championship, if a high school baseball game can ever top that one
That's
for me.
awesome,
I mean,
man.
13-12.
Yeah, I bet that was special to be there, and for
And,
what it
and there was a
meant.
huge
And
crowd.
for what it meant.
And I think the people who were there who weren't from Henderson or Caldwell County were cheering for the Tigers that day.
Yeah.
So you kind of pick up all those fans because you're the not Henderson team.
Right.
So everybody's pulling for you to pull off that upset.
And I'm sure in the regional tournament like that, there are fans there that are there like that.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
not just Caldwell and Henderson fans. They're from the other teams or who might have been involved, other coaches, just watching good quality baseball.
And if the game hadn't been at Henderson, maybe it doesn't mean as much. A couple of years ago, the Tigers beat Henderson 6-5 in the regional semifinals over at Hopkins Central, and that was a huge win and a huge game, but it just didn't quite have the atmosphere, and it was a semifinal game. So to me, the championship game in 91 is my number 2.
That's awesome. Well, mine is not near as dramatic or near as exciting as that, but Barkley Bannister and I got on a bus in 1984 over at Hopkinsville Community College with a group, and we rode that thing all the way to Auburn to see UK and Auburn
Oh, wow.
basketball. The Twin Towers. It was Sam Bowie and Melvin Turpin and Charles Barkley
Wow.
in '84.
Yeah, that would have been a good one.
And we drove down to Auburn. Auburn blew Kentucky out of the gym that night.
Oh, and Kentucky, I believe, was ranked number 1 at the time.
I think they were. And
I don't even know if they had a loss. Maybe that was their first loss.
It might have been. I don't remember. That was around '84, and Sir Charles and the Auburn Tigers took it to them.
Maybe that's a team I'm thinking of.
I think it
They
might have
all
been.
run
I can't
together at some
remember.
point.
Yeah,
but
and
I
don't
want to
have
say that team was ranked.
the-
really.
it was, and I don't have the sports mind you do, but I just knew that, and Barkley was the fan. I just kind of went along with him to have a good time. But man, that was a cool trip. I just remember being, they did, we're going to stop and get something to eat. Well, they didn't. And so all these other people had crackers. Barkley and I were bumming crackers and apples and anything we could and on the way back, we made up for it. But we were starving. We were famished by the time we got there. But so disappointed because we were expected to go down there in UK to put it on them, and Sir Charles and all, they just didn't show up. UK didn't show up. But that was kind of neat to see those guys back in the day.
Well, and a shame that Sam Bowie got hurt because so much is made that he was drafted before Michael Jordan, and that
Right.
Michael Jordan was actually the 3rd draft pick that year.
Right.
Akeem Olajuwon went 1, and then Bowie went 2 to Portland.
That's it.
I think if Bowie had been healthy,
Right.
he was probably a pretty good pick at number 2.
Yeah.
But I mean, hindsight, people are like, well, Jordan was the best player ever, but not necessarily coming out of college.
Right.
So
Right. And, of course, you look at Sam. I mean, long, lanky, and you snap
could
a leg.
shoot.
Yeah, but you snap a leg like he did, and as bad of the break that it was, it just, it just hampers you. You're just not the
Oh,
same
yeah.
player. You just can't do what you used, So I think that, it cost him a little bit. And it shortened his career. There's no doubt about it.
All right, we're up to number 1.
Go for it.
My number 1, and I think this is probably an obvious choice, the 1998 state
Yeah.
football championship game. Caldwell County 38, Danville 28, when the Tigers were projected in the Courier-Journal as 27, 28-point underdogs. Well, to be on the field after that game, I mean, that that was as close to a magical moment as you're
Oh,
going to
yeah.
get in high school football, and just to see the different reactions. Some people are crying, some people are yelling, some people are, bouncing around, and some people are on a knee. I mean, it was crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
it was one of those moments where you're like, did that just really happen?
Yeah. Did not get to attend, but I remember I was working here in town. We had it on the radio, of course. You guys covered it. Or WPKY did. I got Tom Rogers was calling the game for WPKY then, but you were with the paper.
Yes.
But yeah, I just kept thinking to myself, is this really happening? I mean, are they, and it kept, once that second half started and Tigers were in the lead, you're just like, man, is this really happening?
Yeah.
And they kind of, because it really wasn't that we were underdogs, and
Big time underdogs.
yeah, and you heard something like the Kelly Tinsley. Yeah, is that right? No.
Yes,
Yeah.
He was the lineman of the game.
He was all over the place, and then of course the quarterback
Stuart Childress.
Made and our players, they just made plays against those guys.
Well, and Danville had a kid, I believe Jeremy Britt was his name. He was supposed to be a quick running back.
Yep.
Well, Stewart got outside and had a long touchdown run in the second half, about 72 or 73 yards, if I remember correctly. Jeremy Britt was on his heels all the way down the sideline. He still hasn't caught him. So that shows you what kind of an athlete Stuart Childress was.
Yeah.
And they just made big plays after big play. I mean, the receivers making catches, and I think Caldwell's game plan was to try to run the football, and they had some trouble doing that. So the game plan kind of went out the window, and they had to come up with a new game plan quickly. But they were able to make some plays in the passing game that opened up some opportunities. The defense made some plays, and they caught a break on the punt where Danville, one player I think thought it was going to be a fake and was walking off, and the center snapped the ball, and there's nobody back there.
Right.
The ball is just on the turf waiting to be picked up, and Gerald Fuqua comes in, snatches it up.
There's another
runs for a touchdown.
Yeah, it was special.
Just the whole game. I mean,
it was special. I remember, like I said, I had bits and pieces in my head from the radio broadcast. You were there. Great coaching staff. Talented players. They made those adjustments and they made plays, and that'll do it for you sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking about it. We hit on it. Sometimes just you wanted it more than the other team. You wanted it.
Well, and they got down early, and a lot of teams, if you don't have that, goes back to that, there's a knack to winning games.
Exactly.
And, good teams and good players realize you don't make every play in a game.
No.
It's unrealistic to expect to make every play or to blow out a really good team. The other team's going to make their plays.
Yes.
You have to absorb those sometimes and then come back with a play of your own.
Yeah.
And I think it was 14-0 Danville, and it looked like the Tigers were in trouble. But they made a couple of plays, got on the scoreboard, got back in it.
Yeah.
Were able to hang in there, and then, like I said, the second half
it's pretty much Caldwell County.
Yeah, it was Caldwell County, and 38-28 in a game that the Tigers were projected to lose by 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, we lose by 10, and that was as athletic, as strong as a Danville team as that year. And we were talking about how amazing it is that Danville and Boyle County
in the same city,
produce so many football players.
I
they
think
did it this year.
I think it's the only championship Danville's ever been in and lost.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that speaks volumes. So yeah, that's neat. And this my number one's not going to top that. It's really uneventful, but for me, it was kind of neat. It was my first. I was still living in Florida. I was up here visiting my cousin in St. Louis, or outside of Wood River, Illinois, and it was my first Major League Baseball game. We didn't have Major League Baseball in Florida.
Oh yeah.
And I had not been to Atlanta to a game, so I was up visiting. She lived in Wood River, Illinois. We went over across the river to St. Louis, and got to see the St. Louis Cardinals play the Philadelphia Phillies on that hot, nasty turf on a
the
July
old
day.
turf, yeah.
And I had a horrible case of tonsillitis. I was sick as a dog, but I got to see Pete Rose and Mike Schmidt.
Wow.
On the same team. Really great. I say Hall of Fame players. They are.
Yeah.
And Pete Rose in my mind is the best hitter that ever lived, and should be in the Hall of Fame. We'll play that for another day. But and as tenacious of a competitor as there ever has been in the game.
Well, it's funny how we remember some of those players as almost bigger than life.
Yeah.
And when you look at players today, certainly there are some great players, and professional sports, whether it's Major League Baseball or the NBA, the NFL, whatever, somehow they just don't measure up to those players that you remember. You know, there's no legendary figure like.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I would probably tend to agree, but maybe part of it is because we're adults now and seeing them through adult eyes instead of being youngsters and seeing them through
Perhaps, but it just seems like no one has that longevity that players, you know.
Yeah.
It used to be like when you would see a really good player, a Carl Yastrzemski, a Pete Rose.
Oh, yeah.
You know, those kind of guys that they just, every year you just
knew they were going to put together a season. But, yeah, I mean, when I was living in Florida, I used to go to Winter Haven, and the Red Sox were over there. I saw, you'd see Jim, during spring training, you see Jim Rice, Carl Yastrzemski, Freddie Lynn, all those great players. I mean, think about that Boston team and just, and
how good they were.
And never won.
Yeah,
and those players on there. I mean, give me a break. The guy was incredible. But, in your honor, just to say you saw them, just to be in the same kind of space where they were just for a few minutes, But that's what's neat about recalling these games. It's neat to be in that space in time with those group of people, if just for a few minutes,
Well, when we were putting together the list, I kept thinking maybe I should include some other sports. But if you dig into it too deeply, then those aren't your biggest memories. These were the games that kind of
snap out at you. Yeah.
And certainly I can remember other sports.
Sure.
The softball team from Caldwell County was state runner-up in 1998, and what a run that was, winning the regional championship and coming so close. Owensboro Catholic is all that stood between Caldwell County and a state championship in high school softball.
Wow.
I mean, you look now, and this spring will be 20 years. And, of course, next fall is 20 years for the 1998 state football championship.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
So where has the time gone? But I guess, like they say, time flies when you're having fun. And with sports, it's just been a great ride.
It has been, and we're so fortunate here in Caldwell County to have these wonderful memories. These every sports season is fun. You usually take away something from it. You've been right there on the sideline. It's kind of neat called the Sideline Report, but you've been right there on the sidelines of all the sports. You've seen much more of it than I have, but there's always something to take away from each season. But it's neat to see the successes of these kids.
Just a couple of games. I mean,
it's tough.
We talked about the DeSales game, which was 5 on my list. The week before that was the Taz Civils one-handed catch in the end zone to beat Murray 10-7, and I'm like, how do I not have that on there? I mean, that's one of the most. If there's an iconic moment in Caldwell County football, that one-handed grab.
That's certainly one of them.
I mean, that's right there with the touchdown run in the 1963 championship game.
And I tell you what I remember about that. I was at that game. Got that angle of there. I wasn't sure he was still in bounds when he caught it, and as far back as he had to lean.
I couldn't believe he caught it.
I couldn't believe he caught it either. But you had such a fantastic pick. I remember your picture.
I couldn't remember. I couldn't believe I got the picture when I started. I don't even remember taking that picture.
Yeah, that's what's so dramatic because I mean, it's right. I mean, I think you got. I don't know if you have his feet in the picture, but it's the catch.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just awesome, just incredible.
The Scotty Edwards touchdown in '63 that we've all seen the picture of.
Yes.
That's another iconic moment.
No doubt.
It's just.
No doubt.
So but I didn't see the 1963 team.
No.
There are a couple of games I haven't seen.
Yeah, there are. But the guy that just pulled up here had seen a few.
Yeah.
And he took off. Robin Bourne pulled up.
The 2013 game out here at Tiger Stadium where number 1 ranked Caldwell took on number 1 ranked Mayfield, and the Tigers beat Mayfield 48-41 in front of just probably the biggest crowd we've ever seen at Tiger Stadium.
Yeah.
That wasn't on the list. I mean, certainly I've seen some big volleyball matches through the years. I remember girls soccer one year played in the sectional final or in the sectional game against Marshall County out here. Led that game 1-0 at Butler Stadium for the longest time. Marshall County scored late, forced overtime, and then it was a numbers game. They just kind of wore out the Lady Tigers in overtime. Ended up winning, I think, 4-1 in the sectional.
Wow!
But that was an incredible game.
Yeah.
I mean, just. You could probably put together a top 20, and you would leave things out.
We've all got them, and they're wonderful memories, especially the little bits and pieces that you can pull out from your memory banks. And it's been fun, and we encourage you, at some point, we're going to make this participatory show. Todd and I have talked about it. We'd love to hear from you guys via text or whatever, or if you see us on the street, just let us know some things, and we'll add them to the show, because I know there are a lot of special memories up there of sporting events or whatever that you'd like to hear us cover. If you see us or have our numbers and want to talk to us, let us know. We'll be glad to cover it. And
I really didn't think it would take us this long to get through our top fives, but when you start thinking of those games, and I wrote down a note or two on each game, but once you get into it, you remember more and more, and it just kind of builds.
You do. It's been fun, and I think we this top five stuff's kind of fun. We don't know what we'll think up for next week, but you put on your thinking cap, and
we'll have something.
We'll have something else, because we love our Tiger basketball, and don't forget they're going to be playing. Boys play tonight over Webster County. Girls on the road at UHA and
on
Paducah
Friday.
Tillman. Yeah, that's tomorrow on Friday night, and then Paducah Tillman on Saturday. They're going to play varsity first, I think, both those games.
Yeah,
aren't they? Yeah.
6 o'clock Friday and then 11 o'clock Saturday. And Caldwell's boys play at Callaway County Saturday. I think it's 1 o'clock JV and 2:30 varsity.
I think that's right. I know they've altered the schedule a little bit on that. I don't know if this schedule's right on that or not. I don't know. The schedule has been altered just a little bit.
It is Saturday afternoon.
It is that, yeah. So anyway, thanks for joining us today. It's the Sideline Report, brought to you by the Times Leader. Pick up your copy of the Times Leader. Check out the Wednesday edition. You'll see a lot of great basketball highlights from the games. And you got anything special Saturday? Is it just going to be a regular edition?
Just a regular edition.
But you'll have all the...
Taking wrestling pictures on Monday, so the wrestling team will be featured in an upcoming issue. Haven't nailed down exactly when we'll run that, but the wrestling team will be in there. Yeah,
and we think there might be tournament action out there this weekend at the Cab.
The Armstrong Classic, usually Saturday, so wrestling getting going, basketball getting going. It's starting to heat up.
It sure is. All right, well, that's going to wrap up our Sideline Report for this Thursday. We certainly encourage you to tune us in each and every Thursday at 9:02 here on your hometown radio station, WPKY The Tiger. Todd Griffin in here, all his vast knowledge of Tiger sports, and we'll talk among other things as well. Appreciate the Times Leader and Todd for bringing you the Sideline Report every Thursday here on WPKY The Tiger. That's going to wrap it up for us today. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And if you missed it, or if you're just joining us late, you can catch it on our website. We stream it on WPKYonline.com. You can catch it there. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks for joining us. For Todd Griffin, Ty Engelbright saying so long. Thanks for listening to the Sideline Report, brought to you by the Times Leader, Todd Griffin, in studio to get us up to date on everything Caldwell County sports. So be sure to tune in at 9:03 every Thursday for the Sideline Report, brought to you by the Times Leader, Todd Griffin, in studio with all the sports news that you need to know. Catch it on your hometown radio station, WPKY The Tiger.